Half a year ago, I covered Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, a game that I've absolutely enjoyed, where every piece of the puzzle makes up an amazing, satisfying, and buttery smooth experience. And now I decided it's finally time to cover the next game in this amazing series, Shantae Half-Genie Hero. This game surprised me, as although it isn't as sensational as Pirate's Curse, I still had a great vibe with the game as it captures both old and new in a seamless and eccentric way. To preface this, I should note that I am playing the Ultimate Edition, which contains all the DLCs for the base game, some of which I'll be covering later in this review. So without further ado, let me start the review. So here's my summary of the plot. Shantae is the guardian genie, and she has to save the world whilst helping her uncle build a brand new machine. And this tale does come with twists and turns and some repeating tropes throughout the game, like Risky Boots being a villain again. As if, future me here. The Daredevil Born Again teaser just dropped, and I gotta say, Shantae and Risky's dynamic feels similar to that of Daredevil and Kingpin. Like seriously, Kingpin just wants power, and like, he's a fucking threat every time you see him on screen. Whereas Risky looks like a fucking idiot in comparison, especially when you consider that the first boss is her ship with a fucking slug on the bottom of it, and it gets destroyed like right after. On top of that, imagine the fucking god will come back to Shantae after basically taking her magic away, and starring Pirate's Curse as a result. So wow, like holy shit, this series is so fucking hilarious. Okay, I'll go back into this with the DLC, so I'll return with the review. Despite this, the series' iconic vibe and tone do bring this plot to 11. While Pirate's Curse, for example, had a lot of characterization for Risky, every piece of dialogue still feels practically lived in with the environment of Sikinland at any moment possible. The side characters are especially that good, and the base game itself already has a lot of in-character moments here that either made me laugh or feel shock and awe, like this encounter. The next sequel already. He's gonna be the 6th boss. I fucking call it now. This bullshit. Yeah, let's see if the acid DLC over here. What? 99 cents. Aight, buddy. Are you cheap? I mean, are you cheaping yourself for the 99-cent price? Boy, Mr. Fantastic. And yes, I will continue talking about this once I get into the DLCs. Now let's move on to the gameplay. The movement is standard fare for this series at this point, and you get the magic forms you likely missed by Pirate's Curse, as well as a bunch of new ones which can blend to another situation easily. And yes, you do unlock a single form after completing a level for a total of 5 initial levels. Main Street, which is Birding Town but replayable, Mermaid Falls, Tassel Town, Camp Tusacian, and Hypno Baron's Castle. While I agree that this feels the least Metroidvania in this series so far, and there's too much backtracking instead to replace it, the levels gave this really sensational vibe, and the design is just that good. So overall, I'd say when it comes to pivoting from the Metroidvania design, this does pretty well. And might I mention the extra icing known as the incredible soundtrack? And that's just in Mermaid Falls alone. This soundtrack is truly phenomenal. Like, the composer of this game, as well as the previous Shantae game so far, Jake Kaufman, just brought us all to deliver a rhythmic and eccentric soundtrack that is just fine wine today. And that concludes my review of the base game for Half-Genie Hero. Aside from a few hiccups, it was an overall nice, incredible time in the world of Sikinland where everything is back to the usual and then some, with a bombastic presentation and an incredible soundtrack to boot. I'd say I still prefer Pirate's Curse over this, but man, I still had an incredible time with it, so you can check it out for yourself and see how you like it. But for me, this is an 8 out of 10. At some point in the plot, Shantae had gone through all the 5 major levels and had collected all the materials that are needed for Uncle Mimic's new machine. However, the machine soon goes awry, turning Shantae evil if not stopped quickly. Risky then takes the machine for herself, seeing that her greatest rival had finally been rendered unusable since the ending of Risky's revenge. Now Sky, Bolo, and Lollipops have to work together to save their friend from losing her own humanity, like how the rest of the Guardians saved Rocket in Guardians 3. So with the duality of these stories, I'll be splitting this section into 2, Pirate Queen's Quest and Friends of the End. And now let's start with the former.
There are 2 sides to every story. This is how it really happened.
After stealing the machine, Risky plans out a way to make this strong, unstoppable force to conquer the Genie Realm once and for all. And so it's back to the seas for the same levels again. The only exception that I noticed is the scenario in Tassel Tower, which does not have the worm chase, thank god. Even then, you can still get this phase of the level after you complete the worm chase as Shantae. And lastly, the bosses are somehow still intact. Every time you encounter a boss now, they give a bullshit reason for coming back, like the Techno Baron somehow being able to capture the mermaid again. And I was wondering why Risky was so much a fucking jerk in this scene. Like, did she know that the Techno Baron captured the mermaid and she consented to none of this shit? Like, wow, imagine being so fucking arrogant about yourself that you can't even appreciate the fact that you saved a life. Like, even Fisk had his moments with Maya Lopez, for fuck's sake. And we're looking A-okay after being beaten hard by Shantae, apparently. Wow. So you may be asking this question, what's the main difference here? Well, Risky's moveset is different from Shantae's for starters. Remember some of the upgrades in Pirate's Curse? Some of them return here, and you can upgrade these upgrades as well as the base stats by going to the menu itself. This is way more convenient than flying an HP tank in the middle of a map. Overall, it's a mode where you play as Risky Boots. There's little new to be found here, and some of the story beats can be confusing, but hey, it's a pretty playable mode for sure. And if I had to give this a rating, I'd say it would be a 6 out of 10. The setting of the DLC is a fragment of Shantae's memories from Half-Genie Hero. And with that came a character study where everyone had a moment to shine, whether it be Sky, Bolo, or Roddy. For instance, Bolo's memory of the mermaid fall situation is when he saw that mermaid as beautiful and attractive. Sounds familiar? However, my issues don't come with the plot, they come rather with the gameplay and how some certain outside changes and negligence made this a lot harder than it should be, and also a bit of a missed opportunity in comparison. See, the tag team mode provided the potential for some really nice gameplay moves, but it's mostly rather limited by not just the 2D plane, but how many attacks can come at once. Like, take Sky's platform and Roy's flexibility. Now, both those moves can be done sequentially, but any combo attacks that would have made sense anywhere else just couldn't work here, on top of an extra difficulty curve, all thanks to a bare bones system. Like, you get 0 HP upgrades here, you get 0 items, and you get an XP system that basically downgrades once you lose a certain threshold of gems. Now, I really wouldn't complain about this if the other campaigns weren't just that easier, but it's a lot more noticeable once you realize that a 3-minute boss fight can literally move into a 1-hour boss fight, and that was all because of missing features.
But wait, there's more.
Notice something already? Spider Island, right? That's right. Several tracks from Pirate's Curse were reused in this mode exclusively. I'd say this is a welcome addition considering that Pirate Queen's Quest didn't have anything new in the musical department. And that's all I have for Friends to the End. A pretty disappointing expansion that goes through all the familiar levels, coupled with a lack of freshness in the level design, a new gameplay style that's pretty good, but mixed as well, and a difficulty curve that made me scratch my head a couple times. So if I had to rank the 3, I'd say this is the least favorite based on experience, and it's not exactly one that I'd say is more memorable than the base game already is. So I say this is a 5.5 out of 10. However, if you are a hardcore fan, I suggest that you could try this out once because there are at least some good character moments here for Sky, Bo, and Roddy, but that's about it. Now, to conclude this video, I only have a few good things to say here. This is a game that shows ambition, it has an amazing presentation and a rhythmic soundtrack to boot, and I gotta admit that there's a lot of content that you could sink your teeth into. Not all of it is fun, and there's a lot of repetition to be had in here, especially with the lack of newer levels after the base game, and there are moments from previous games you're likely going to miss here, especially for me with Risky's vulnerability in Pirate's Curse. But hey, the game's still pretty good, the Ultimate Edition is pretty good, and for newcomers, I'd say this is a good entry point to the series, but just remember that the games don't take themselves too seriously, so just have fun with them, I guess. So my final verdict on this game is a 7 out of 10. I'd prefer this more than Risky's Revenge, but it's not as good as Pirate's Curse. Hopefully the next game in the series, 7 Sirens, can top this one. Anyway, that's all for this review. This is Havno, and thank you for watching.